Welcome to Season 2, Episode 13 of the Be Conscious podcast. This episode marks the fourth in my series of awakenings, where I will be interviewing remarkable individuals who have made their transition into their most authentic selves and works. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing health and wellness expert and coach, Brianna Greenspan. Here we go.
Welcome to the Be Conscious podcast, the show that brings you enlightened perspectives on the frequency of money, life's many challenges, and those heavy feelings that may be holding you back from living your best life. And now your host, Dr. Susan Nicholas.
Brianna Greenspan was born with a chronic illness that went undiagnosed into her 20s. Defying the logic of doctors and the temptation to be a victim, Brianna has dedicated her life to healing herself while empowering others to take ownership over their physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. Brianna's journey sparked her thirst for knowledge in neuroscience, mindfulness, permaculture, appreciative inquiry facilitation, ancient healing methods, and habit stacking to increase vibrational frequencies. Oh, this is going to be exciting. She is the co-author of multiple books, including one with the Miracle Morning series. Her life work is centered around using her superpower as a master connector to facilitate all the good she can in collaborative settings to uplift global well-being, primarily focused in medical genetics and education. Wow, what a wonderful bio. Brianna, welcome to the Be Conscious podcast. Did I miss anything?
Oh my gosh. Hi, Susan. What a pleasure it is to be with you today.
Oh, likewise, Brianna. I was really looking forward to this interview. You have a very intriguing story, and I really want our listeners to hear it. You say that you were born or had at a very early age diagnosed with a chronic illness that you didn't know what it was. Can you take us back to your childhood, to where it all began? I believe the journey from childhood brings us to exactly where we are today, to actually where you are today, vibrationally, spiritually, emotionally, all of it. If you can take us back to your early life and tell us how it began.
Absolutely, Susan. You know, I was born super challenged, and so I didn't really know that others had different life experiences. I thought that everybody felt the same way that I did, and I remember hearing my mom share with people that I never stopped crying until I could talk. By the time I could talk, I just kept saying things like ouchie, bobo, pain, problem. And my earliest memories are of going to doctors and specialists and, being in and out of so many complex situations where there were assistive devices and medications and shots and eventually surgeries and, a lot of uncomfortable variables that took place where there were so many symptoms happening all the time. And because they were so vast, nobody really connected the dots on them. And they just kept saying, Brianna's got all these challenges and giving me different labels for each one of them. And it was just kind of like a nightmare. So I'll leave it at that for a moment.
And so what were some of the nightmarish things you were experiencing? What were the symptoms? What was paining you? What were you crying about as a child?
Yeah, it hurt to breathe. It hurt to move. And so mobility was just like a big struggle. I'd wake up a lot of the time and I would just be bruised all over. I would have joints that weren't stable. And so they'd dislocate or sublux, which I didn't really understand. There was a lot of stomach challenges where I'd just spontaneously throw up on almost daily basis. And so I even remember at school, there was like a note with the school nurse, oh, if Brianna throws up, that's her normal. Just give her a few minutes and send her back to class. Like they didn't have to send me home because that was just like my
That
normal.
was just the normal thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so there was a lot of allergic reactions and hives and rashes and stomach challenges. And eventually we kind of learned that all those things went together. And so it was just a big conglomeration of, sensitivities, if you will. I had a very serious eye situation. There was like some challenges with my feet. Eventually, by the time I was 11, they put me in a back brace that went all the way down one leg in order to try and fuse my spine, which did not work that well. There was a lot of physical therapy. Eventually, there was a surgery. It left me unable to walk, which was a not ideal scenario. And so there was just a lot of complexity surrounding what was going on. And the consistent theme was you can't, you won't, you'll never. A lot of limiting beliefs on the possibilities for my future. And so it was a really challenging place to be, and also a very hopeless and debilitating place to stay in for so many years.
And my understanding from looking at your profile and listening to all this is that you had the hereditary type alpha tryptophanemia.
No, actually, it's so funny that you said that. I do not have hereditary alpha tryptophanemia. I have a condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and something else
Oh, okay.
called gastroparesis and mast cell activation, and a type of dysautonomia called POTS. However, I now professionally work with the National Institute for Allergy and Infectious Disease on a condition called hereditary alpha tryptophanemia that literally mimics all of the symptoms that I have.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Wow. So from a genetic standpoint, you don't have the gene kind of mutation, but you have the symptoms of it.
No, so I do have the gene mutation for Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, but not
but not that
not for hereditary alpha
yeah.
tryptophanemia. Exactly. And it was kind of a crazy thing. I've been known as a connector in the medical space. And so I got a phone call from the head of NIAID, and he said something to the effect of, I discovered this condition. I think you might have it. But even if you don't have it, these people feel the way that you feel. Maybe you could help them. And so we learned eventually that I did not have this condition, but I learned a little bit about these patients. They just feel the elevated version of how I feel. Most of them go into anaphylaxis, where I just have hives and rashes. And so I really felt like my personal experience was calling me forth to support other people that have complex challenges like I grew up with.
Wow. So I know a little bit about that. I for about 20 years, I suffered with angioedema, and it's kind of like the hives that'll kill you,
Mm-hmm.
like swollen tongue, intestinal stuff. I had that. It started actually for me when I was in medical school.
Mm.
And now now that I've come to my conscious awakening, I don't have it any longer. I don't suffer from that anymore. But I recognize now that it was stress induced, and stress induced from like a soul perspective, if that makes sense. Like I was not in my purpose.
Mm.
I was doing something to check all the boxes, to be looking for external validation. And it all led me back to myself, like this inner space, and healing the energy, the soul of me, the spirit of me. And once I did that, the angioedema went away.
Mm.
And so I believe that sometimes we experience chronic stuff like that as a journey to bring us back to our inner self. I trained as a surgeon. I think I may have told you that. And I came to the medical community, and we used to always have this thing where we would, as surgeons, we would do our thing, any medical doctor, and then we would tell the patient, like, you got to go heal yourself now. And like, we kind of knew that there was a limit to what we could do, but really that the body, the patients healed themselves. Like we could do a little bit of Roto-Rooter, But at the end of the day, the healing power lies within each of us. And I began to recognize that too, that there was something that I needed to do. And this is in my case, and it was in the realm of autoimmunity, which I suspect some of your symptoms. I mean, the Ehlers-Danlos, I understand some of the gene mutations, but some of the autoimmune portions of it, I believe it's, we call that the body attacking itself. It's seeing itself as foreign and goes to attack it. I think there's something about what we're doing in life, what we think we're up to, why we think we're here, or something that is foreign to the soul that says, wait a second, I'm sending you signals now that we are not on the right path. And so that was kind of my journey. I don't consider myself ever being someone of chronic illness, even though I had that chronically for a while. I wasn't born with it. I don't have it now. It was like a period of time that I had it. And I never considered myself, disabled or anything like that. I was just like, oh, I got this thing, but now I'm free of it. And so I wanted to talk about your journey, because you said it wasn't diagnosed to you in your 20s. So from the person suffering, the child, to the now you know what it is. I don't know. Are you still suffering? Like, does it change anything that you now know, or is life better in some way in your body? Is it better?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Susan, thank you so much for sharing that story. And so many things that you just shared really resonated with me, because I do definitely believe that my body is constantly guiding me to what I need to know. And that a lot of the things that I experienced in childhood, especially the severity and aggressiveness of the symptoms, have been kind of a blessing in the way that I've been able to serve other people that I definitely wouldn't have really been able to understand or relate to the situations that I find myself counseling people on today. And the label was awesome, I have to say, because I never felt seen, heard, or validated by anyone ever. It was just a series of doctors saying, this is what's wrong with you, and here's an assistive device, or this is what's wrong with you, and here's a surgery, or this is what's wrong with you, and here's another pill. And the pills just kept stacking up. The surgery suggestions just kept stacking up. The assistive devices just kept stacking up. At one point, there was like, here's a handicap placard, and here's a neck brace, and here's a heart monitor, and here's a wheelchair, and here's a walker, depending upon the circumstances that I was going through, because my body doesn't hold itself together as well as it could in certain areas at certain times. And so the assistive devices and the medications and the surgery suggestions were very like the go-to things for physicians. And what I learned is that, one, this is not that rare. This is actually pretty common. Two, from an appreciative inquiry standpoint, I became a lifelong learner of what's working to help people who have these types of challenges. And so I went on this journey to figure out what were the things that people were attributing to their vitality, to them having sustained energy, for them feeling the strongest and their most coherent selves for the longest amount of time. And that led me in so many different directions. But I'll definitely say that the last 13 years of my life have been drastically different than the first 20 years of my life. And although, there are a lot of complexities within a progressive and genetic condition, I don't necessarily have the same experience as many of my peers that have the same conditions, especially now in my life. I do have challenges that I'm able to manage much better than I would before. But so I wouldn't say that all of the symptoms have gone away completely, but I've been able to shorten the duration of symptoms or mitigate significant amounts of symptoms that just 5, 10, 15 years ago, especially 15 years ago, that was not at all the case. And I'm almost a completely different person now than before.
And how do you think that you're able to mitigate or shorten the episodes?
Well, it's a lot of the rituals and habits that I've learned about, like biofeedback, for instance, or craniosacral therapy, or aggressive amounts of physical therapy or aquatherapy, or neurolinguistic programming, or, I do something called the miracle morning, which is basically waking up earlier than you normally would. And I pour into myself with whatever my body needs at that moment, surrounding affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, journaling, meditation, etc. And it's just it's filling my toolbox with so many different tools that no matter what situation comes up, I just ask myself, what can I do in this moment despite whatever I'm experiencing? Like if my neck just dislocated and I'm very disoriented, or if I've just thrown up, or if, whatever it is, I drop into gratitude, because I say thank you so much, to my body for teaching me whatever I'm supposed to know right now. And a lot of the time, that's actually a really big learning and a lesson that probably I wouldn't have recognized had I not had a symptom that followed it.
I absolutely love what you just said. I'm going to share with you how I actually overcame the angioedema, because it's the same thing. Is when I would start to feel that flare up. And for me, when I would get my anaphylactic kind of stuff, it would last for like 24 hours, 36 hours. I'd be like swollen somewhere. And, I'd have to like take, antihistamine. Sometimes I would go to the emergency room, depending on where it was. Sometimes I would vomit. And I remember when I became aware of what I call the soul body connection, like it's higher than the mind body connection. It's not an intellectualization of, okay, this is happening, but it's feeling it in the body and like connecting with the feeling of it.
Mm.
I would always feel it come on. I'd feel something come on. And after my awakening in 2012, I began to recognize this thing. And I always could feel it coming on, but my conscious awakening, when I would feel it, I would literally get pissed off. I would be like, God damn it, here it is again. And I like all the stuff I was going to go through or I had been through, I would just like literally start cursing my body. And then when I woke up, I began to honor my body. And I began to thank her for all that she has carried me through. And then I began to like have a relationship with myself, like with me and me. I call it the relationship with you and you, like you, the physical you, the soul of you, the mind of you, the spirit of you. And I would ask her, what is it? And you know what I would hear every time? I would hear my soul saying, fear. So anytime that I was afraid, this is what usually scared me. This is what scared me the most. I did not care if I died, Brianna. Like I was like, I'm out of here. But I was afraid of not having enough money. I was afraid of being homeless. I was afraid of not having enough resources, of not being good enough in some way. So I kind of suffered from the not enoughness, the trilogy, or the whole thing of not having enough, being enough, doing enough, not enough. Finally got to, I would say, recognize that. I began to, the area that was about to swell, I would literally, you talked about gratitude, I would apologize. I'd say, I would hear it. I say, I hear you. And I would acknowledge that, yes, usually I feared something in the future. I wasn't being present. And I would fear something that was to come that I didn't know how it was going to work out, if I would have enough, if I'd have a place to live, if I would, have enough, whatever, resources of some sort. And then I would come back to the moment. I would literally hold that. Like I would just start breathing. I'd hold that place and I would feel it literally like regress. Like it was a swelling. I'd feel its sensation. I'd feel it start to raise up. I would stop in my tracks. I mean, I'm telling you, Brianna, if I was on the freeway, I would pull over and I would, acknowledge this body. And again, like thank her for showing me what was in me that was in need of transformation. Because it was a message to me, but instead of hearing the message, I would just curse it. and I would just go like lose my cool and I would get upset instead of like hearing the message. And so now anytime I feel fear, I acknowledge it immediately. And I thank myself for reminding me that, yes, this was a past experience, or that, what, I've never been homeless. So why am I afraid today? I've always had enough to eat. There have been difficult times, but I'm here. I'm here. I've made it. And that the universe has my back. And so once I got kind of that awareness, all of it went away.
What a beautiful story, and what a beautiful lesson about listening to your intuition and listening to the internal wisdom that your body has to offer you. That's really the core about what it means to be conscious. It's dropping into your intuition and hearing the messages that come up and then taking action on them that are in alignment with your highest good on a regular basis.
I mean, would you say that, I know you talked about biofeedback and aquatherapy and physical therapy, but would you say, Brianna, that it's the gratitude, it's that awareness that has provided you the most relief, the most healing?
Yes. So I'd say that my mindset shift from, when somebody else told me, you can't, you won't, you'll never, you have, this is your life. That was their opinion that they were sharing with me. Yet when I internalized it and told you, for instance, I can't, I won't, I'll never, he said X, that's my opinion that I've adopted from him that I'm now sharing as my core truth. And so when I initially made that mindset shift and then started to really drop into gratitude and really start to recognize that the experiences that I was having were similar to you, not something that I needed to be fearful of, but something I needed to be aware of. I have a phrase in my coloring book. It says, there's nothing to fear because you cannot fail. Only learn, grow, and become better than you've ever been before. And I ask myself, what am I supposed to learn in this moment? How am I meant to grow right now? How am I meant to show up better than I have before for myself and for those that I serve, based on the experience that I'm having or based on that past experience? And it was definitely one, clearing the haze, because I was taking so many medications for such a long time that I didn't even know how to listen to my intuition. I didn't hear it. It was masked. And so
Yes.
it was masked and it was muted and it was hidden inside a box. And
Right.
the unfolding of letting go of taking pharmaceutical medications, the unfolding of transitioning to being a lifelong learner, searcher of practices and rituals that work, were all the ripple effects of that mindset shift, of that deep knowing that my intuition was meant to guide me more than anything else, and jumpstarting that attitude of gratitude that is now part of my all day, everyday practice.
Brianna, would you be open to sharing with our listeners your Miracle Morning, like your new practice? I've been on your podcast, so I'm aware of it, but I would love for you to share with our listeners what that is in case they haven't heard about it. And any techniques that you would recommend for someone to quote unquote drop into gratitude. And if you'll give me just a moment, I would love for you to talk to us about that after this little break.
Like what you're hearing so far? Make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button now. How would you describe your relationship with money? Did you ever imagine that your deepest feelings and beliefs about money could be preventing you from acquiring all the wealth that you desire? Click the link below in the show notes to learn more about Dr. Nicholas's highly sought-after Frequency of Money program to positively transform your relationship with money. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. Thank you for your support. Now, back to the show.
So, Brianna, Miracle Mornings and dropping into gratitude. What can you share with our listeners about that?
Oh my God, I gotta just talk about this this break that we just had, I have to add on to it. If you're loving what you hear, not only does Susan have a course, but she also has an amazing offering on Clubhouse. And so if you are not following her on Clubhouse to be able to unlock your issues with money, I heavily recommend it. That is where we met. And I was just like listening to that, beaming with joy. I hope that lots of people are able to find the amazing offerings that you have based on hearing that and from your voice on Clubhouse. And
oh, thank you for that. Yes, I do speak on money consciousness. That's what I did my TED on. That's what my frequency of money is, my speaking platform. And I think, just like there's a lot of body healing that we're talking about, sometimes these are very deep soul, sometimes ancestral, emotional issues that we're clearing in this life and that shows up in our body. I think that energy that we have, we can carry over from generation to generation, and it looks like poverty. It looks like not enoughness. It looks like limiting beliefs around your self-worth, about confidence. And so I do a conscious money platform because I know it's transformed my life, and I think we're all in many ways in the life transformation space. And I hope that my overcoming these money blocks and these traumas, literally emotional traumas related to money, this energy of deprivation, just like I believe, Brianna, you are helping people overcome their physical, the physical body traumas. I'm telling you, this conscious work, this meditation, this gratitude, these shifting perspectives, mindset go a long, long way in transforming lives and really us living happy lives. And I think at the end of the day, making our ascension. So thank you for that plug on my money platform.
Well, here's the thing. Money consciousness is a real thing. And as you mentioned, some of your health situations were triggered by your lack of awareness of money consciousness.
Exactly.
And so, I will transition into the gratitude piece and the miracle morning piece by saying the miracle morning was created by Hal Elrod, who researched what the world's most successful thought leaders attribute their success to. And what he learned is that everybody attributes it to a powerful morning routine. Within that, there were so many different habits, but the 6 most popular categories were silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. And so he just thought, what if he woke up earlier than he normally would? And he started doing all 6 practices. And eventually he started sharing that with others like myself. And so for the last 13 years, both him and I have been doing what is now known as the Miracle Morning, which has gone on to become an international best-selling book. Now there's a book series. Now there's an entire multi-million person global movement in 120 countries. And it's beautiful to see that most of these rituals and habits, almost anyone can access for free, but we just have to make the time and space for ourselves to be able to pour into ourselves before we go out and serve the world. And we say on a regular basis with the Miracle Morning room that I host on Clubhouse, what would it look like for you to fill up your own cup so that you can give to others from a place of overflow versus a place of depletion? And I am the co-author of the Miracle Morning Art of Affirmations, which is a positive coloring book for adults and kids, which is one of the books in the series that if you're looking to elevate your environment in order to shift your subconscious thinking, that's what this book is all about. So you can destroy the whole thing by coloring pages, tearing them out, putting them on your mirror, your locker, your desk, your office, or doing something like adding them to a vision board, because your subconscious is paying attention to the things in your environment. If your environment is reinforcing who you want to be by having affirmations that say, I am where I am because of who I was, but where I go depends entirely on who I choose to be, or I have the ability to change or create anything in my life starting now. Stumbled right there.
Oh, no worries.
My level of success will seldom exceed my level of personal development, because success is something I attract by the person I become. Or something like who I become today will determine what I am capable of creating tomorrow. And when you have things like that in your environment, they call forth for you to ask yourself a question. Like, I have the ability to create or change anything in my life starting now. When I see that, I ask myself, what am I creating right now? What do I have the ability to change in my life right now? And those types of questions are really the questions that are going to serve you to call you forth into who you choose to be in each and every moment. Because it's not actually about just talking about gratitude or talking about the things that we value. It's about living it. And when we live it, it's based on the actions that we take each day.
And you know what, Brianna, I love that. And I think it also is about feeling it. So I talk about when I do my conscious speaking and works, I talk about you cannot fool the universe. So I can't give lip service and say, oh yeah, I'm grateful, where deep inside you don't. You feel hurt, or you feel like you're being ripped off, or things are unfair, or you can't understand this, and you're kind of like got that going on the inside, but you're saying something else on the outside. And so I always say it's all about feeling. You have to feel grateful. You have to actually be grateful. And sometimes, we're not grateful for the exact circumstance or situation we find ourselves in, especially if it's painful to us. Because many lessons are painful, but we can find what we are grateful for, or the future that we're looking into, or what the possibilities are. And so I go through this exercise with my son. We talk about not just what we're grateful for today, but all that is to come. All the money, all the opportunities, all the ideas, the creativity, the connections, all of it, all of it, all of it, all of our fulfillment, our well-being, our security, our happiness, all of it. Because we can find in that, we can find something, even if this exact moment you are struggling, inside. And you feel kind of like a hypocrite, saying, oh, I'm happy when you're not, or I'm grateful when you don't feel it. But I always say have like a three things that you implicitly know to be true about yourself, and be grateful for that. Like you might say, I'm fully supported. I know it. That I'm a good mom. I'm an excellent cook. I'm a great friend. I'm a whatever, whatever you choose, what you implicitly know to be true, no matter what, and hold those things, because that shift in that state of fear, that state of those lower frequencies of shame, of regret, of pain, just remembering who you are in those moments, giving gratitude for that is enough to shift, like cause a vibrational shift, to create a vibrational shift, and not just shift your moment, your perspective, but shift your life. And so I totally get you. I love what you do. I love your work. Your energy is just gorgeous. And you just bring it every day. I mean, when you're on that morning miracles every day, I'm like, oh my God. Because I have moments, I'll have to be honest with you, Brianna, that I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't sleep well last night, or I've been thinking about this, or I'm concerned about my business growing, or, oh, my kid isn't doing well today, and or so on and so forth. I've got this stuff going on in the background, running in the background, and I don't wake up like loving it. I wake up like, oh, I could sleep in today. I don't have it all the time, but then there are moments that I do, where I have I be quiet. I think what competes, even your clubhouse room, like those early clubhouse rooms, that required you to be online, to be on your phone. And so even that, like having to do that, when I've done like the Breakfast of Champions, the Miracle Mornings, it's like that is taking me out of my process, like to get on my phone and to log onto an app, to be in a virtual digital space. And so I have, maybe you can help us with that, because I have a little bit of, how do I call it? I'm like, well,
Technology
how can I,
fatigue.
yeah, like how can I do this if I've got to be on the app? Do you know what I mean? Like, if I gotta, how do I have this meditation? How do I have this silence? How do I do my affirmations when I'm on an app? When I've got to be on or when I'm on an app, or I'm already on my phone the first thing in the morning. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I'd love to Oh my gosh, I have lots of thoughts on everything you just shared, but I want to go back to this. How do you get into a state of gratitude for a second? Because it's so incredibly important that we experience gratitude at a deeper level. And there's an acronym for gratitude, if you will, and it's the G is give it, the R is receive it, the A is affirm it, the T is think about what you're grateful for, the I is inspire gratitude in others. The T is talk about what you're grateful for. The U is understand how important gratitude truly is. The D is dream about what you're grateful for. And the E is express gratitude today and every day. And that's one of the things that I live by, because the moment I wake up, the first thing that I do the moment I wake up is I think, I'm grateful that I woke up. And then I start to think about other things that I'm grateful for. And I know you and I have talked about David Hawkins' work in the book Power versus Force, and he's got this chart of consciousness. And you can't actually be in a state of anger or fear or grief or shame and in a state of joy or peace or love at the same time.
Exactly. Like they're competing forces. Like you cannot be in fear and in gratitude at the same time.
That's literally right. So they are exactly that, competing forces. And so if we want to make sure that we're staying in a higher state of consciousness, in an elevated state of consciousness, which the Miracle Morning mission is to elevate the consciousness of humanity, one morning at a time. If we want to put people in a higher state of consciousness, we need to drop into that attitude of gratitude. And a lot of people are so confused on the concept of gratitude that they think it needs to be for these magical things. I just won the lottery and whatever. But the truth is, you can be grateful that there's oxygen in the room. You can be grateful that you woke up today. You can be grateful that you can wiggle your fingers and toes.
I know. I always say you can be grateful for flush toilets.
You can.
I literally say anything that you're like, oh my gosh, there's air conditioning and it's hot outside, or I got shelter and it's like there's mosquitoes on the window and they could be eating me, and instead there's a barrier. Like there's so many things, as long as you get into that, because sometimes we forget about just what you said about the air you breathe, about waking up in the morning, that you have shelter, that you're whole in yourself, that you've got a body, you have an opportunity. I think waking up is like an opportunity to do something awesome.
Yeah.
To be something, to shift something, to change something, to inspire someone. It's an opportunity. And so, but sometimes we forget that. And when we are cycling through pain. So I get you. It's just remembering that there's so much around you to be grateful for.
Did you just notice what just happened? For anybody who's listening, like if you think about the phrase misery loves company, it's the same. Gratitude loves company. So if you noticed how Susan mentioned one thing she was grateful for, and she riffed off something I said, and then she mentioned like 10 things instantaneously that any one of us can be grateful for. And that's the magic. Gratitude loves company just as much as misery does. And so once we start to get into that attitude of gratitude, once we start to prime ourselves by saying, I can search for the good. So for anyone who doesn't have a gratitude practice, my invitation for you would be to start small by focusing on identifying 3 things that you're grateful for every single day for a week, but making sure that you don't identify the same thing again. So it can't be like, I'm grateful for my kid, I'm grateful for my parents, I'm grateful I'm alive. Okay, same things every day. You need to find new things that you're grateful for. And once you stretch that muscle, you're going to start realizing how grateful you are for things that you completely and totally took for granted just weeks, months, or years ago. And there's so many things that
Exactly.
we can be grateful for. And so that is really where it all starts. And to address the conversation about, tech fatigue, I will say that my Miracle Morning is significantly earlier than the show. So the show doesn't start until 7 a.m. Central for me. And I'm able to do my Miracle Morning from between 5:30 and 6:45 before the show starts. And I also encourage people to do their miracle, like if they want to be in the room, if they want to be on Clubhouse, make sure that you're super intentional. A lot of the people that I know that join Clubhouse rooms in the morning are on a morning walk, are doing their yoga practice. They're on a yoga mat, they're stretching, they're on a Peloton bike, they're drinking their water, they're journaling on a question that was asked. They're literally taking notes about the things that they're learning. So they're doing something to serve themselves at the highest level. Yet that really starts with figuring out your why for being on a platform like social media. And if the why is so that you can learn, so that you can connect, so that you can grow, okay, great, do those things. But if the why is to distract us from what we're meant to be doing to serve us at the highest level, then you probably shouldn't be on that platform at that moment or at all. And so it's really about asking yourself, why am I here? And is this the choice that's in alignment with my highest good? And so for some people, the answer is yes. And depending upon how they're, like, I know a lot of the moderators that are on my stage, they're literally on the Peloton bike or doing a workout or, doing all, like, leading a meditation in our room or leading a journaling practice in our room or leading a visualization in our room, to make sure that the people that haven't done those things, that might need some support to presence themselves, are able to do that while they're with us. While we also invite people, hey, make sure you get what you need. Maybe that's a journal, maybe that's a yoga mat, maybe that's your headphones so you can take this conversation on a walk, whatever it is that's going to serve you at the highest level. Make sure that you're doing it and not forgetting about it because you're so excited to be in this space with us.
Well, firstly, I love all this. I love the distinctions, that you're making about coming on with intention versus in knowing your why you're there in the first place. Before we kind of close, I wanted to talk to you about kids. I know your coloring book, you said, is for adult and kids, and I've heard you speak on the Clubhouse platform about getting your kids involved in your morning routine. I'm going to just put out there what I struggle with my kid is like the morning time is like so difficult. Like it's, getting me up, getting my son up, getting ready for school, I feel like it's like dragging out of bed, getting breakfast, getting, carpool, all that I feel like I'm out of, if it's just me, I feel like I can pull off the meditation. I can pull off, the quiet, the silence, the intention. But when I've got someone else to take care of, I feel like it all falls apart. So what advice can you give to parents? Maybe, I don't know if you're a parent.
I am not a parent, but yet I coach many families that have kids of all age ranges. And I will say that the first few things, I heard some language that you shared surrounding like, I have to getting out of bed and, that there's a rush in the morning. And so my first thought would be, what might it look like for you and your child to change the way that you address waking up? And that you have a conversation surrounding setting your opportunity clock versus your alarm clock. And then having a conversation surrounding what might be possible, what fun and awesome things might be possible for you guys to do together or separately in the morning if it was an opportunity to wake up versus a have to wake up. That's the first thing. It's a mindset shift. And then
yes, I love that.
Within that, I would, do a little dream session where you guys are identifying what would you love to do in your morning? What would be so fun? And at the Miracle Morning, we have an acronym. We call it the CHARMS, and it stands for creativity, health, affirmations, reading, meditation, and service. And this is something that you can do within 6 to 10 minutes. And you say to your child, like, what's something super creative that you've wanted to do for a long time? And then you have a list of 20, 50, 75 activities. Like, great, these take 10 minutes, these take 2 minutes, these take 50 minutes, so that based on if they're getting ready for school or if it's a weekend, the things that you can pull out to check off creativity. The things that you can pull out to check out health. Maybe that's Cosmic Kids Yoga. Maybe that's some stretching. Maybe that is some jumping jacks. Whatever that is. I know people that do just a 6-minute Miracle Morning with their kids, And it's super easy for them to say, mommy's going to be silent right now. And so are you. Here, we're going to play this. And then you like play, some binaural beats for a minute, or a meditation track for kids for a minute, or, whatever that might be that you guys have agreed on are things that are lighting you guys up versus things that you feel like are a chore. And when you stack one thing after another thing after another thing that's awesome, not only is your child going to be super excited because they're going to be like, this is so fun, this is so awesome, I want to wake up. And then they're going to be the one waking you up versus you waking them up after you've dragged yourself out of bed. And then it's like a fight to like wear your shoes. Is your backpack ready? Let's get breakfast. So prep work, super important to plan for the morning, both in having a conversation with your children beforehand about the things that are lighting them up within each of those categories. And two, having certain things like the 5-minute journal for kids or the Big Life Journal, which is the best resource out there. And I don't work with them. I have no affiliation with them, but I heavily recommend the Big Life Journal. It's the perfect companion to the Miracle Morning Art of Affirmations coloring book. And there's a couple other things that I could expand on, but just starting small, making sure that, while you guys are having breakfast, you're just saying like, hey, what's three things you're grateful for? And you start this like consistency that we talk about gratitude when we are eating breakfast, or we journal right before we eat breakfast, or we are reading in the car, or we're figuring out what's one creative thing that we can do for our teachers, for our classroom, for our neighbors, for mommy, etc. each day that checks off service. And we also have a charms tracker that seems to be really helpful for kids. So we recommend that they color it, then laminate it, then put it on the fridge. And that's just kind of like an anchor reminding them, oh, I get to do these things tomorrow. There's so many things that mommy and I have discussed that I want to do, but we haven't had time because school got in the way and all these other things get in the way. But when they realize that there's the possibility to do things that light them up in the morning, and then they recognize how they feel because there were challenging moments at school, but they handled them like a ninja because they were probably in a coherent state from that practice. And you getting to do that practice with them, along with them, it'll really, I think, enhance the way that you guys are showing up.
Brianna, thank you so much. That was a wealth of ideas. I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm going to be doing certainly some of these things with my son. And I think it's really pertinent now, particularly as a lot of kids in this pandemic have been feeling depressed and sad, having even suicidal ideation, to do something different. And so I thank you so much. In our remaining minutes, will you please tell our listeners where to find you, where to find your coloring book, how to find you on Clubhouse, all of it?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for this beautiful time together. You can find me on Clubhouse. It's Brianna Greenspan is my Clubhouse handle, or find the Miracle Morning Club, which we run a room every single day at 7 a.m. Central. You can also find me on Amazon. Just type in The Miracle Morning Art of Affirmations, or tmmartofaffirmations.com. And you can find me at briannagreenspan.com, or on Instagram, BrieGreen1111. And I'm super grateful for you for hosting this space to talk about what it looks like to be conscious in so many different areas of our lives. And I'm super grateful that we met on Clubhouse.
Thank you, Brianna. And I want to thank our listeners for taking this inner journey with Brianna and I today. And always remember to be conscious. If you love this episode, and if today's message resonated with you, please subscribe, rate, and review the Be Conscious podcast. I want to know what inspires you and what conscious topics you would like to hear more about. And if you want, you can share those thoughts with me at info@susannicholas.org.
Thanks for listening to the Be Conscious podcast with author, TEDx international speaker, and conscious coach, Dr. Susan Nicholas. Be sure to connect with her to stay up to date with her latest news and works. Learn more about her conscious speaking platform at susannicholas.org/speaking. Stay tuned for the next thought-provoking episode. And whether you are coming or going, looking inside or out, remember to be conscious.